Hello, I'm Ibrahim Imam, and welcome to this episode of the Neurology Lounge podcast, in which we will continue our exploration of migraine. Today, I will be talking to Danielle Fancher, who has written an interesting book, 10, A Memoir of Migraine Survival. Danielle is a writer, a migraine advocate, a speaker, and an author. She's received awards from the National Headache Foundation and the Association of Migraine Disorders for her writing and advocacy. She's also a member of the Patient Leadership Council for the National Headache Foundation, and she's a board member for the Migraine Science Collaborative. Danielle also has a very enlightening Instagram account with the handle at Migraine Writer. Danielle, thank you very much for joining me on the Neurology Lounge podcast. I'm very grateful for your coming. Is there anything else you want to add to this background before?
Yes, thank you so much for having me and for the lovely intro. So for more on me, I guess I'll share some of my advocacy as well as my migraine experience. So I actually got my first migraine at the age of 16. I was driving my car home from school one afternoon and I had aura. So I'd completely had my whole vision clouded and I couldn't see the intersection ahead of me. And it was a really scary experience because at the time, migraine hadn't really been talked about much in my life. So it was a really tough thing for me to kind of figure out what was going on, how to get home, all of those sorts of things. So I had migraine for a few years after that. And then when I hit the age of 20, they became chronic. So I was having 15 or more headache days per month. And that was really challenging for me to balance college. And I was on the college tennis team at the time and taking classes. And it was hard to kind of figure out a balance between managing my pain and my day-to-day life. So I've been actually in chronic pain for a number of years now. I'm currently 36. So I've been in chronic pain since around the age of 20. And then actually October 2nd, 2013, I got a migraine that never went away.
Okay, let's go back, I think, at the beginning, which was with
Oh,
this
sure.
aura while you were driving. You were in high school at the time, you said your sophomore year. Um, did you have a headache with that? Or it was just the aura?
It started with aura, and then when the aura disappeared, the headache began, which has been pretty consistent with my migraine over time.
Okay. And I'm just, I know that you said at the time you were not aware that it was a migraine at that point. Um, was it so kind of untalked about for in the kind of the community at the time not to know it's kind of headache looks like a migraine? Was it?
Yes, I think I had always associated the word migraine with headache, but as I learned during my first migraine, that it's so much more than just head pain. So when I lost my vision, or at least that's how I described it at the time, and experienced aura, which was the flashing lights where I couldn't see, that was really scary because I didn't know what that was. I didn't realize that that was associated with a migraine.
Okay. And your mom did suffer with migraines, but she never talked to you about it, is it?
Yeah, I mean, I was familiar with the term. I knew that she had head pain here and there. I don't think I quite realized, and I don't think her migraine had ever evolved to the place that mine is right now. So it didn't need to come up in conversation at that point. But um, it's wild to me because it's so prevalent. You'd
Yeah,
think that, teenagers would all be aware of what migraine feels like and its symptoms.
but not. Any other family member with migraine? Is it or it's just your mom then?
No.
Okay. And I note from the story, from your narration there, your second aura started during a physics exam, if I recollect. Um, did you find at the time that your migraines were coming up at times of stress? Because clearly an exam is a stressful time.
What's interesting is I find that the letdown of stress is a major trigger for my pain. So it's less about headed into finals, headed into a big tennis match or a big presentation. It's after. So
Okay.
I know that after finals end, I'm going to be in pain, or after a big weekend event or any sort of thing that's stressful, it's right after, which is a blessing that I can kind of try to push through those larger events or milestones, but it's always very tough anticipating when it will hit.
And does that kind of give you an opportunity to prevent it? Are there things you can do now that you know the stress is coming on? Um, do you drink more water
Yes,
or sleep better? Or
yes and no. I think I've over the years I'm hyper aware of, my behaviors, the things I'm eating and drinking, kind of trying to minimize the risk of migraine, but so much of it is out of my control. So I have to say it really yes and no. Like I feel like I've learned a lot, but it's still very out of my control.
is that unpredictability, isn't it, with migraine? Um,
Hmm.
and then after your third visual aura, you said, and I'm quoting you, you built up the courage to ask for help. And that third episode was quite disruptive, obviously. You said
Okay.
you lost awareness actually for several hours. You said you were quarantined in your small cell-like room
Yes.
at the time, afraid of
Yes.
stepping into the sunlight.
So I had had multiple episodes of Migraine with Aura around that time. I think I kind of cherry picked the most memorable or pivotal ones for my memoir. But for that particular time, I was living in Australia, so I was studying abroad during college, which like what an amazing opportunity I had to really just experience the world and like learn about another culture. It was just, very important growth time. And I was at the time having up to 4 migraines a day, where I'd have aura, which like, you're in another country, your family's not there, you're so excited to be there, and it was really challenging. And I had a very small room. Um, it was just a very tough time to be like in this little cell-like room, as I described,
You described it.
for days on end when I could see all of my friends having fun and exploring and going to the beach. Um, so so that was tough. I think I recognized that I was missing out on some opportunities there, in addition to being in a great deal of pain and unsure of how to navigate it.
Did you have any other types of auras then? It's just always been the visual aura.
It's always been visual aura. They've evolved over time. So during that period of time, I was having them more frequently day to day. Now I'd say the aura is more rare. Although I'm in constant head pain now, the aura is much more rare today. I don't even know if I could quantify how regularly they happen, but much less frequently.
It kind of speaks about the disconnect between aura and headaches. One would think
Hmm.
consistent. You also wrote about each migraine came with each migraine came an unparalleled feeling of heaviness over my entire body. And your body felt like a block of cement while your head felt like a balloon floating above. How often does this manifestation of migraine outside the head happen with you? We
It's a
expect
great
migraine to
question.
be in the head, but obviously there's so much going on outside.
But I would say a symptom that I have is heaviness. So for migraine, around the head pain, whether it's the pre-migraine time or post, they call it prodrome or prodrome. During those times, I feel heavy. I
Okay.
feel like a weight over my shoulders, as I said, like a heavy weighted blanket on top of me. And it just kind of makes you feel sluggish and slower. And that's like another symptom that I feel physically. One other symptom I've had for the past year is numbness, actually, from probably the left shoulder all the way down. So left arm and left leg. I've had every test done. I've exhausted the list of things to explore there, and my doctors have come to the conclusion that it is also associated with my migraine pain, with my aura. So I think it's still something we're like exploring because it feels newer, but having numbness all over that's consistent is
Yeah.
overwhelming and tough. But in addition to that, I often, during a bout of migraine, will have numbness in my fingertips, in my lips, around my face, just to name a few of those symptoms.
Did you ever have weakness down the same side?
No, so I can still use all of the functionality of the muscles. It feels more like a pins and needles numbness type of feeling.
Because there's a whole class of migraine called hemiplegic migraine where people come
Yes.
they've had a stroke. I suspect you've had all the
Yes.
tests
Yes, we've ruled out stroke and hemiplegic migraine.
Is there anything you can that kind of tells you today is going to be a good day? Today I'm likely to be free of migraine. Is there any
That's a great question.
warning?
So I have intractable migraine. So I have a migraine that's never gone away. So October 2nd, 2013, a migraine started that never stopped. So I mentioned that earlier, but I woke up with the same migraine the next morning, a week later, the same migraine, and still today, it's been over a decade of the same pain. So it might sound more negative that I don't know that I wake up feeling that way, but I have to say I appreciate when I'm able to still live my life and do all the fun things I want to do and achieve goals
Mm.
while still being in pain. I think I've kind of accepted the day-to-day pain as part of my life. But like when I'm able to keep meeting my goals and doing the things I really want to do, I feel like I've won. So there's an interesting balance there between like recognizing the pain, but trying really, really hard not to let it completely hold me back.
And I mean, linked to that again is this aspect where you talked about being afraid I mean, you were hiding your migraine at the beginning, and you thought people would see it as a weakness or a flaw. Is there, have you had, has that been translated into a stigma in your life? Has migraine ever been a stigma for you, kind of
Yes.
work?
And I hear this a lot. I do a lot of work in working with other people with migraine, whether it's just having the conversations around it, being there to support and vice versa, people being there to support me. So I feel like it's very common in our community to feel like we can't talk about it because people look at you differently, whether it's in a work setting, in relationships. Um, I really do feel that there is a stigma around it, and it's challenging, especially if you think about calling in from work, saying, "Hi, I can't come to work, I have a migraine." That's a common excuse that people lie and use. So it's very challenging when you're trying to communicate, "Hey, I'm sick, I cannot come in today," but you're using a similar line that people are using,
Yeah.
fictitiously. So it's very challenging. And so for a very long time, I did not tell anyone. No one knew how much pain I was in day to day. But over time, I realized that it was such a misunderstood illness and no one was talking about it. Because we're all sick at home and frustrated because it's misunderstood. And I just kind of, once I started sharing my writing and really explored the advocacy world, I was like, I have to share. How can I not? Because I don't want the high school student like me who had to hide from her teachers when she couldn't finish a test because she couldn't see. Like, I don't want other kids to go through that. So I feel like it's very important that if someone with migraine feels comfortable and ready to share, that they're willing to really take that time to educate people. It's
Mm.
so important that we're each like making that effort because there are a lot of perspectives we need to change.
Yeah, I think it's the invisibility of it. If you've kind of broken a bone and you have a plaster cast, people can understand why you can't come in. But I think you did talk about your friends kind of not being quite happy with you, not joining them in social occasions. And you had
Yes, same thing.
a, and you had a tennis coach who didn't seem to understand the impact. So it does have an effect, isn't it, socially? Um, then the other thing you talked about was your first consultation with a neurologist. And how did that go? How did that first meeting with a
I don't
neurologist?
remember
It's been
my
some
exact
time.
first appointment. I remember early on I saw a neurologist. I believe they prescribed me a triptan or something pretty common.
Well, I
Um,
have it in front of me, rizatriptan and then
yeah,
some triptans. Okay.
yes. And then I saw some other neurologists. I made sure to start seeing headache specialists. In the US, that's something that's I think important to prioritize when you're managing migraine, just making sure you're seeing someone who's a specialist in that area. But even though they're also hard to find. But I would say I've seen a lot of neurologists over the years and been prescribed a lot of different medications. And I think there's it's an interesting mind game because you're trying all these things. You get so excited whenever you're going to try something new and hopeful. And if it doesn't work, it's a major letdown. So I think there's definitely an interesting way to frame like a cautious optimism when trying new medications, where you're hopeful it'll work, but you're very cautious and try not to get too excited because the disappointment is real. It's expensive, it takes time. Um, you know, just something I've learned over the years from my experience.
Yeah, I was going to explore that hope you have every time you start a new medication. And I looked at, you wrote about 1.5 pages of, or several pages long of the drugs you've tried. And I thought I should list some of them just to give a sense of
Sure.
how diverse they are. Magnesium, feverfew, citalopram, nortriptyline, Inderal, Neurontin, venlafaxine, prednisone, frovatriptan, Robuxan, Midodrine. It goes on and on. How do you manage to keep that hope every time you try something new, having seen that many others haven't?
Mhm. I don't know. It depends. I don't know that I'm always hopeful, but I'm persistent and I'm in pain every day and I'm very driven to find a solution. So I feel like it's just been a goal of mine to make sure that there's nothing I haven't tried.
Mm.
And if that means taking a break from trying medication, that's also trying something, or hitting pause or reevaluating. I think all of that is just part of trying to find an answer. So I think for me, and I know everyone is different there, it's just been important to make sure I'm not missing anything and I'm going through the whole list, because I just think it's important to feel in my own way like a sense of control over that and that I'm doing my best, you know?
And among the things you've used are not things that would appear conventional. Um, so I've seen you've tried some Chinese medicine, biofeedback, hypnotherapy, colonics, liver cleansing. You are ready to push to push the boundaries of what could work. That's interesting. What was your experience of liver cleansing? It's not
I don't
something.
even remember. Just part of the list, you know? It's
Um,
been so many medications over the years and just trying different unique things. At one point I even um I couldn't work anymore. I was too sick. So I left my job and I moved down to the beach in Costa Rica for a short bit of time and I just took a break. Um, it's a scary, risky thing to do that, but I just wanted to see if being in a consistent climate was helpful since changes in temperature is a trigger for my migraine pain. So just, trying all of the different tactics to see what I can do.
So, I mean, that takes back to, I mean, you talk tactics, but in college, you said you set some ground rules to get you through college. Do you remember them? That's kind of something that can help people in college at the moment. What?
I don't remember the exact rules that I wrote down, but I definitely have ways to kind of push to get things done while still managing my pain. I think prioritization was very important during that time in college for me. At the time, I was playing on my college tennis team, which was very competitive and time consuming. I had a full social life, but very quickly realized I couldn't do everything. So I had to figure out the priority list, what really mattered. And at the time, school mattered the most. So I at the time really had to make sure I zeroed in on what can I do. And everything extra just kind of had to hit pause. And I think that's carried on to my adult life as well. I've figured out that certain things matter more at certain periods of time, and you need to prioritize it because you can't do everything when you're in this much pain. So,
You had to learn to say no very early on then.
yes.
Okay. There was a place where you talked about when you realized you are not just Danny, but you are now migraine Danny. How did that kind of hit you that this migraine is part and parcel of me? How?
Yeah. I think it was an interesting time in my life when I I'd always kind of defined myself in a certain way. I was a great student, a hard worker, I was a tennis player. I love competing. Um, and there was a time when my migraine kind of shifted all of those things. I had a hard time working hard because my brain was foggy day to day. I was in a great deal of pain. Exercise became too hard. So running a mile would trigger a migraine and keep me in bed for days when, I'd been a college athlete for years. Those are just a few examples, but all of these ways that I had to find myself had kind of evolved because I was in a new place that my migraine had put me in. So I had to really figure out, like, who am I? If I can't, like, if I'm not this hardworking tennis player, I was very social and happy all the time. And I think I explore a lot of that in my book, how it changed me in some ways, not permanently, but it's interesting to see how it kind of made me evolve a little bit in great ways too. I think it's who knew I would be a writer. And never in my wildest dreams did I think I would be like writing anything, let alone a whole book about my experience. But the migraine brought that out in me too. So I think as much as we can talk about the challenges of it, there's some really beautiful things that come out of it too.
Yeah, I think I have a couple of questions on that. But um, I was interested in when you said you've eventually addressed your diet, and I like this quotation. So you said about everything I ate gave me a migraine or headache. How much discipline did it take to kind of adjust the diet and remove the triggers?
Again, I think it speaks to just similar to trying different medications. I was in a mindset of I'm going to do whatever it takes to figure this out. And I really dedicated myself for quite some time to making whole foods, being very mindful of what I put in my body, and figure out what I can do diet-wise to ensure I'm being as healthy as possible. And ideally not triggering more pain. And I think that was a really good exercise. Did it completely change my pain? Am I free of pain now because of my diet? No. I think for my migraine brain is much more complex than solving it that simply, but I tried it and I feel good about that. And I think I learned a lot in the process.
And you said it took you out of your migraine, took you out of your comfort zone. You became a healthier person, and you rethought every aspect of your life, which I guess is kind of the gift you said you kind of got from migraine. Um,
Exactly.
yeah. uh, the other side, which is again, it's the emotional aspect. You talked about it, and that's part four of your book, the mental side of physical pain. And you wrote up the dark thoughts, times when you were crying in your hands, feeling miserable, even suicidal at one point.
Mhm.
How low does migraine take you? I mean, it's
Mhm. I think migraine can be very challenging. I think there are a couple elements that make it hard. I think the physical pain, number one, so challenging that you're in pain, and for me it's intractable, so it's ongoing. So like when will this pain go away or let up? So the length of it is also very challenging. And I know so many people with migraine experiences too, where the pain is just unbearable and there aren't many solutions for us to solve for that. So I think that's a challenge, but I also think that there's the other side of it where you're trying to explain to the people in your life, whether it's in a work environment or in a social environment, whatever it may be, what it's like. And it's because it's so misunderstood, there are a lot of challenges to that too. So I think there's an interesting dynamic with migraine where you're really battling the pain day to day, but it's often misunderstood or miscategorized by people. And I think that's tough. I think there's a lot that people with migraine are dealing with there. And what I found, the best thing I've ever done is start connecting with other people with migraine.
okay.
So nothing has been better for just feeling like you're part of a community, like other people understand your pain. So I have a whole network of people I talk to anytime I'm in a lot of pain or I'm like struggling with someone misunderstanding. I've got a whole network of people I can talk to, whether it's through text or phone call. I actually like run an Instagram account called Migraine Writer. That's a whole community of people with migraine as well. So it's really, I think, like the key thing that anyone with migraine should do if they're feeling low or going through a tough time pain-wise.
It's kind of an informal psychological support then. Have you
Yes, it's very important.
have you ever required a formal psychological support?
Yes, I haven't found it particularly helpful. I think the nuances of having constant pain is very difficult for someone to understand who isn't going through that. So I really do feel that like my migraine community that I've connected with over the years has been like the game changer.
Okay, that's interesting to know. I know
Hmm.
where to send my patients to now. Um, there's an interesting metaphor you use, sporting metaphor. You say migraines are like an evil tennis partner who wants to hit you with the ball as hard as possible at the worst possible moment, making you snatch defeat from the jaws of victory. That's quite a good, interesting metaphor. Does it kind of encapsulate what migraine is? Kind of you're always fighting it all the time, and
Yes. And of course, I'm throwing in metaphors to tennis, a big part of my life. But yeah, it's so hard when you feel like your body is like turning on you and you're like, what is happening? Why am I like it's my body like doing this to me, and it messes with you because a migraine will appear at a tough time and you're like, why is this happening right now? Like it's just there's something that feels really tough about the how do I say it? Like knowing that your body is like starting a migraine at a time that's completely inconvenient and challenging, and you wanted to experience something. It messes with you a little bit, but I know that's just the nature of the illness, and we all deal with it.
it kind of plans to come in to disrupt. That's
Yes.
that's interesting. Okay. One thing you found helpful in, you said, escaping the burden of migraine is reading books. How did literature help you to deal with migraine? Is there a specific genre? Is there any kind of books that you find helpful to deal with migraine?
So, and I know this is reading can often be very challenging for people with migraine. I totally recognize that. That's like not even an option for many people. But one thing that's been helpful for me personally, like there have been so many nights where I've been up in pain all night long. Um, and I found that reading has been helpful for that time. It helps my mind escape. It helps me just explore what other people are going through. I think there's just so much you can learn from that. And I think during the time that I was most sick, I was reading a lot of memoirs, and I was kind of searching for someone who understood what I was going through, if I'm being honest, and I couldn't find it.
Mm.
Um, I mean, obviously there's so much to learn in great literature out there, but I just was looking for something. And it's like not finding it. So one night I just started writing on my own. I was up because I was in pain, and before I knew it, I'd written a lot down, and I think that was probably kind of how I began really trying to put the words on the page to share my perspective, because I knew if someone else, if I was looking for it, someone else was too.
I can, yeah. Um, which is, I mean, when I was looking for a memoir to look to out to this podcast, there aren't many like yours out there, I have to say. uh,
Yeah.
what lessons do you think readers should take from your book? What are the key lessons?
I think if I could communicate anything in my memoir, I think number one is you're not alone. Number one, I mean, there are so many people with migraine, chronic migraine, hemiplegic migraine, like the list goes on of people who are battling pain day in, day out and feel misunderstood. And I think if anyone could just take one takeaway from that is that they're not the only ones going through it. And there's a whole community of people who understand. They might not understand the exact pain because all of our pain is so nuanced, but they understand what it's like, the frustration, trying to do it all. And I've met a lot of these people in my advocacy work, working with a number of organizations. But if somebody could just leave this memoir feeling that way, I'd feel very good. Now, for non-migraine patients reading this memoir, if they could leave just having a glimpse of what it's like day to day, I think that would be so important to me. I would love for them to leave with an understanding like of, wow, I had no idea that that's what was involved with migraine, whether it's the trying the medications, the letdown of that, the trying to explain it to people who might not understand, the just enduring of the pain. I think that would be important as well.
Good lessons. Are you planning to publish any other books, or have you published any?
Not right now. This one was definitely a passion project of mine. I spent years working on it and being very thoughtful about the words I was putting in and how I was really sharing my story. So this was my one memoir for now, but I'll let you know if anything else changes.
Okay. Do you have any books up to three of that you can recommend to others to kind of read around anything about the brain, but perhaps around migraine or headaches?
Yeah, I think there are a range of different migraine books, whether it's like they're great cookbooks. Obviously I have a memoir. There's some more books on like the medical perspective. I think it just depends what you're looking for. Are you looking to feel have more like a tactical list of here are things I can do to try to solve for this? Are you looking for more, how can I adjust my diet? Are you looking for more like specific wording on cluster headaches? Like there are a range of resources there. It really is more unique to what the patient or the patient's community is looking for.
Too diverse to
Yeah.
consider. Danielle Fancher, thank you very much for participating in this episode of the Neurology Lounge podcast. I'm very grateful. And to my listeners and anybody watching as a vodcast, I thank you very much. If you found this episode enlightening, you may consider subscribing to my database called Neuro Checklist, or you could also have a look at my book, Surfing the Brain. I talked a bit about migraine. And you can also subscribe to the podcast, iTunes, Spotify, or YouTube channels to ensure you don't miss the next episode of the Neurology Lounge podcast. Danielle, thank you very much. I'm very, very grateful. Thank you.
Thank you.